American space station.
Hello, welcome to the GARF Network. I'm Eric.
And I'm Matt.
And tonight we have Suz Romero with us. How you doing, Suz?
Good.
Hey,
How
Suz.
about you guys? Nice to
Doing
see
great.
you guys.
I know, it feels like it's been forever.
Yeah, it has, but it also feels like home.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
absolutely. No,
Yeah.
we always love having you on. It's always a pleasure when we get to sit down with you and you get to share all the goodies and we just get to wax George for a bit.
I don't, yeah, waxing George is one of my favorite things.
Good night, folks. We can't top that.
Okay, okay.
Have a great night. See you next time.
Bye.
No, but I think as we mentioned off air, it's time for a victory lap, because I think ever since Matt and I have been involved with the GARF, we've been waiting for this time for the amusement park to come out, and it's just a relief to see people reviewing it online. People are seeing it. It's getting a reaction. It's great.
So did you know that we're certified fresh?
Oh, very good.
Nice.
We are
Nice.
certified
Congrats.
fresh, and we have to apply for the tomato trophy.
Oh,
That's awesome.
I didn't know there was a whole process. I thought it was.
Evidently there is. So we're gonna do the application, and we're supposed to, the office will have a fresh tomato trophy. I have no idea what it looks like, but
I love it.
certified fresh.
I could only imagine what George would say about being certified fresh.
Oh my God, it would be insane.
Like, what's a rotten tomato? Yeah.
And just in case.
He did know of the app. Yeah.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, he
Okay.
definitely did. And Shawshank Redemption is the #1 movie on IMDb. Did you know that?
Yeah. Oh, I knew it was up there.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think it's the highest rated movie. So,
And rightfully so.
yeah, it's a great movie. I mean, there's no doubt about it. So, but anyway, he knew about it. So,
Okay.
and I think we ought to be real proud that we have a fresh tomato.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And just in case anybody's been living under a rock, we're talking about George A. Romero's The Amusement Park, which debuted earlier this week on Shudder, which everybody should be subscribing to and checking this movie out if you have not already. They've got a free trial right now, so there's absolutely no reason not to check it out.
Yeah. I mean, there's a lot of George stuff that pops up on Shudder. I know Day of the Dead's been on, Night of the Living Dead. Two Evil Eyes, Monkey Shine. So there's a lot of great stuff on Shudder, and
they're big fans. They love George, and they do this because they love horror. They love George Romero. So I mean, to them, it was a perfect fit. I'm so glad because this really gives it the big spread in the United States, so I'm really happy, but I've been doing press for Europe too, because they opened before Shudder did. So it's been going on for a bit. And Japan is about to go, I think next week. So
very good.
How's Europe received the amusement park in terms of the subject matter?
Well, they love it. I mean, all the Europeans are much they're very cerebral. It's very George. Oh, it's they really analyze the subject, and so they love it. It's been very successful, and I think they opened June 2nd. So, yeah.
Okay.
And it's always been the French, the Germans, the Italians, they've all been very keen on it. And, and the Japanese, they're so cute about George Romero. They love him, but it's so very different from their world, but somehow they've embraced the Romero films. So it's exciting.
Yeah. No, when I was watching the movie, I got a text from one of my college professors She was a sociology professor of mine that I ended up taking like all of her courses, and I ended up having to write that paper on Dawn for her one class, and she's watches our show all the time, and she was watching the panel, and we were both almost at the same time texting, this needs to be taught in the classroom, as like it could almost have a second life in the academic world.
Sure.
Just based on it, because I took a class called the Sociology of Death, and it was about society and how they view death and aging and everything. And I kept thinking back, I said, this would be a great, not a whole course, but part of a course is to really study that. And I'm not sure if George ever thought of it that way, but I think it's got some legs in the academic world.
No, it does. And I think he knew that, actually, because it was meant to be for communities, right? It was meant to be for the church, the church halls, and this was meant to be like us hoping that they could get programs to support. This was like a precursor to Meals on Wheels and all that.
Uh-huh.
But even today, when you have all these programs that are available, even in the United States, but in Canada, we've got, we have some support groups, but it still affects you because it's still not good enough.
Mm-hmm.
It's still not good enough. And I think we just need to, as a community, as kids, as adults, as, I'm hoping that these conversations happen, because it's not just about programs, it's about your attitude towards older people.
Inclusion.
Inclusion, and not having you disappear, not being worthy, not having had the experience, and then nobody cares anymore. So
right.
It's all about that. And I think, and as George had a knack of telling a story in a unique way that kind of made it a little scarier than the Lutheran probably would have liked. Which is amusing, right? Because Jesus, they hired George Romero, right, for this. So you're going to get edgy.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's a scary subject, though. I mean, and I imagine that was their intention, to kind of scare the pants off people into, doing something about the situation.
Yeah. And I think too, one of the reasons I also think that this movie has received so much attention is because of the pandemic, because it's been, a light has been shone on,
Oh, yeah.
on the homes and the residences, and they got wiped out. Ontario, I know in Canada, it was awful what happened, and and I think this movie, sort of the timing of it was interesting.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah.
One question I had was, I know that this comes from two different sources, the final version. Was there one version that was like way better than the other, and that was the main one that you used, or was there a lot of work kind of just splicing this thing together?
Well, I don't understand your question. Sorry.
Well, I know that. I read in the comments on Shudder, or on the version I saw on Shudder, it said it was from two different. They used two different versions to make it.
No.
I didn't know if was one like way better than the other, and they used that one like
in terms of the print.
Yeah, equality and all that.
Yeah. So we had two prints physically, Tony Booba's and mine. And we knew we had another one in Dallas. There was an archivist who had it in her library, but she told me that it was in horrendous shape. So we didn't even bother with hers. And Tony's was worse than mine. So we used the print that we had.
Okay.
And it was in bad shape. The DVD that I received was actually in good shape. It was good. And so I was hoping that the print, but the print had already done its, fading and warping, 20 years after it had been recorded, or digitized.
Mm-hmm.
So they did it frame by frame. I still see the flaws, but it's not high res. It's what it is. It's 1973. They did the best they could, and it's good. It's fine.
Yeah.
But
I think it's a miracle that it's around and that we were able to see it.
Yeah. No, there's a charm with those old movies on film. I think, Eric and I grew up on VHS, and, not every VHS version of every movie we watched was in great shape. And that was part of the charm. We love seeing the movies cleaned up, but there's something about tracking lines and splices and stuff that really, especially for this film, it adds to it. Yeah. I think it just helps create that atmosphere that it just sucks you in.
Yeah. Well, it's patina, so it's good.
Usually at the top of each show, we talk about the GARF and everything, and we're glad we wanted to, while we have you here, we could kind of paint a bigger picture of what we do here at the GARF. I mean, if people want to contribute to the GARF, can you talk about that for a minute, Suz?
Well, you always need to keep the lights on. So, we always sort of beg for money because, we need it. And it's we're a foundation, and I think that we do good work, and we're wanting to do more good work, but we need donations, and so it's a hard ask, but we hope that people are going to help support us. So, it's important. It's not dire. It's not like sick children or hunger or anything like that. But it also provides us with entertainment and the things that make life worth it, where you have a little fun. And this is all about supporting people who entertain us in this world, and future filmmakers, and it's all about that. So we always have our tin cup in our hands.
Well, I think we're seeing the fruits of that right now with the amusement park. I mean, I've been wanting to see this thing for 15 years. So and I've got a feeling this is just the beginning.
It's exciting because George had a good month, right? Because people were talking about him and talking about his movies, and part of what I really would like to do is sort of George was in a box, and I'd like to unbox him, and make people aware that he was a very diverse human being, and he was a diverse artist, and he wrote a variety of works, and and he was just smart, and I would like people to understand that he was an important filmmaker in American cinema, and I know that you guys, you drink the Kool-Aid, you're in. But I also think that there are others that do need to be exposed to him in a way that a little bit more eye-opening. Let's just put it that way, and it's fun to have. It's fun to have people get excited about George Romero, because he struggled towards the end, getting people to see his work or wanting him to work, or but he kept writing. He wrote till the very end.
Mm-hmm.
Always stories. Yeah,
and I'm excited, and just the work with what's been going on with the archive as well. I mean, there's just I mean, we're on the inside and we don't even know what's going on, so we're excited.
So I've been working on Romero's Elegy.
Oh wow!
I don't know if you've ever heard this, but we have a 21-minute, George's very first film that his uncle Monroe, gave him $5,000 to buy a camera, and he bought the Bolex, and then he shot this. He actually shot 2 films. I thought at one point he had shot 3 films, but according to Russ Streiner, there was only 2. And so we have the first one, and it's called Romero's Elegy. And Richard Ritchie wrote the poem so they shot it, and they intended on doing narration and adding music, but they ended up throwing it in on the shelf because they started making commercials. So they got caught up in that world making money, and then they finally got enough money to buy their equipment for Night of the Living Dead, and so this has never been touched. So we're doing it. Gary Streiner, John Harrison, Chris Meidel, we're working on getting it done. We've got music. We've got Terry Alexander doing the narration. It's very cool.
I'm sorry. Is there a destination? Did you mention that in there? Or
what do you mean by a destination?
I'm sorry. What is the ultimate the goal?
We're
I mean,
not
obviously.
Actually, sure. We're not actually sure. We could do film festivals. I mean, we have some ideas. I don't think I should tell you what our ideas are. You know. But
no, you can dangle that carrot for a little bit. That's okay.
Text us. Yeah. Text us, all right?
Yeah.
So we have, so we're going to pursue those, and we'll see what happens. But I would imagine that they're, again, same thing, Romero completists, Romero cinephiles, they're going to be interested in this. Whether the zombie fan, who just wants Dawn of the Dead, are they going to like this film? Probably not. But again, it's about the filmmaker. It's about a talented person who and we're witnessing his work, and and so it is what it is. It's not, we're not pretending it's anything else. So it's just this first movie. It's it's like this very first movie was the dummy falling off the porch, right? Getting arrested. But this one was a little bit more serious, so
yeah.
And it was 61.
Wow.
61.
Yeah.
So, it
all
was
right.
30 something. So, yeah. Kind of cool.
It's funny. It's like George just keeps giving us stuff. He always, it was like he did so much, but now we have the ability to see the fruits of his labor. And like you said, it's not just the cinephiles, but other people, are going to be like, wait, there's another George Romero film? What? His first film? It's out there. I mean, I'm sure there are fans of other prominent horror directors, the Argentos and the Carpenters, that they would love to see this stuff. And here's George, who's so influential from the beginning and was, the first one to really kick open the modern horror genre. We're discovering this. It's getting out there. So I think George is becoming a trailblazer yet again, in hopes that, fans of other horror directors are going to go back and be like, wait, yeah, I have something in this box over here. Let me check. And we're just getting more. We love these filmmakers, not because of their films, but because of the people they are or were. And that's why we love them. We always have stories of George himself outside of his films. People have John Carpenter stories, Tobe Hooper stories, and it's the people that really make us a family. It really keeps us going because of the person themselves, not just their work.
No, and but also though, I know that more than anybody because George and I were in our little bubble, so it was just him and me, not the work. It wasn't the movies. It was just him and I. But it's interesting, though, that now there's a guy who has an archive, right? And so, now there's a place for people to put work, or the idea that my work is worthy of protection.
Heck yeah.
Like put it away and let's
Legacy.
curate it. Let's, cherish it. So for the first time, that's what's happening. And in a way, George is still trailblazing because he's opened up a whole new venue of a place to put these works, you know. But you're right. It's always about the human being, right? It's not, you know, the work is the work, of course, but, you know, is he a nice guy? You know, was he honest? Was he, you know, like, because George always had that reputation of being, you know, very generous, you know, like would care about when he was talking to you. It was personal, you know, and people always say, wow, he was such a nice guy, you know.
Mm-hmm.
So it's important that you know, a lot of people arrive to get the signature from their, you know, their person they love, and they're hoping that this person is a nice person, but sometimes they're not, right? And it's a disappointment because you are like, I love this guy, but he's such an asshole.
Yeah, it happens.
Yeah,
unfortunately.
You know.
Yeah, but I mean, we've been there. I mean, however many shows we were at, and we'd sit there and everyone wanted to talk to George. Everyone had a story, and George listened and, you know, smiled and was appreciative. And that just, unfortunately for George, it made more people come back for more all the time. And George never got a break. And, you know,
No.
but that's what you want. Everyone walked away with some sort of story from George, and it was always pleasant. There was never a bad experience with George, and it just made us love him more.
Yeah. But, you know, then, you know, when the 5:30 time, you know, then he would turn it off, you know, and then it was just, you know, a regular guy who, you know, just a regular guy. So it's, you know, it's a on and off, right? You're an icon 1 minute, and, you know, you can't find the mayonnaise in the refrigerator.
That's the best. That's the best thing about George, is because, like you said, in so many cases, you know, probably about half the time, it's not a terribly pleasant experience. And I don't know who said it, but somebody says, trust the art, not the artist. You know, and which is fine. That's what's cool about George. It works both ways. It works for people who just appreciate the art, or who give a damn whether they're a decent person or not. Works both ways. Yeah. Each checks both boxes.
Yep.
Something else I was thinking about, as far as just posthumous releases, this may be one of the most significant posthumous releases, period. I'm gonna have to poke around a little bit. I mean, there's been some musicians that's released some works just after passing, but that's always been within a year or two of their passing. You know, this is way on, you know, this is pretty well on down the line. I mean, this is a 40-year-old, 45-year-old piece of work. So, I mean, you know, it's something to think about. I don't, when does this happen? When something, you know, you know what I mean?
There's that film Metropolis, right? So that was probably the biggest sort of posthumously produced or released. But you're right. I mean, I would say, I don't know, you know, other examples, but this one's pretty big.
Yeah, it's huge. I mean,
it's not like George made it and passed away while it was in post-production. I mean, this was truly lost. And it's not like, oh yeah, we found it, nothing's ever going to come of it. You did the work and you got it out, and
it'd be like finding a John Lennon album now.
Yeah.
Well, not quite, but yeah.
I think so. I think quite. Yeah.
But listen, it wasn't quite lost. It wasn't quite lost, right? It was more like
hidden.
Yeah.
And then, you know, and then having seen it, then going, whoa, because when you see this film, at least for me, when I first saw it, and I'm not even close to being a Romero kind of, like, there are people who know way more than I do about George in terms of his work. So when I saw it, I could totally see his work, his style, the editing. I mean, it was obvious to me. It was like, boom, right there. You know, so for me, it was fascinating to see, you know, a 73, and I could totally see him. You know, and it's also amazing because, you know, I don't know if you noticed, but he's wearing, on some of the stills, we see he's wearing these striped shorts.
Mm-hmm.
And in the movie, you see these striped shorts cross the camera, you know, because he's part of the crowd, right? And in the background where you're hearing the walla, it's all George Romero. You know, he's like, hey, get up. And, so I hear him and see him constantly in this movie.
Mm-hmm.
Because I know what he was wearing, because I see the stills, and so I knew that he was wearing the striped shorts, and then yeah. And then, of course, the old people who are in the film, the volunteers, you know, the way they move, they're almost like zombies, right? It has that weird look to it. So anyway, George was like, you know, it was nothing, but it was interesting for sure.
Gave him a chance to cut loose on a subject, for sure.
Yeah.
Gave it everything he had. He had used every tool that he had in the bag.
Yeah,
at that moment.
And even, you know, the shot with, you know, the two Lincoln Mazzels in the white room, right? Split screen.
The composite, yeah.
Totally doing, you know, I'm sure he's like going, yeah, that's kind of cool, you know. You know.
I'm sure. I bet you he'd done that in a commercial before. He'd done
Maybe.
Yeah.
Yeah. But, you know, always the you know, the machine always working, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And some reviewers said to me, or interviewers said to me, you know, it's amazing how, you know, like, you know, it was like, just give him a camera, you know, he would do it, no problem, you know, just give me a camera and I'll tell you a story, you know. So he was very, very resolute, you know. He really just wanted to shoot. So it's very cool.
Yeah. Sorry, were you going to say something, Suz?
No, I was just, you know, I remembered when, you know, I was seeing his movies for the first time, you know, Night and Dawn and Day and Day, which I, you know, love Day. And I, you know, so he just seemingly interested in my opinion. And of course, I always looked at his films not from a fan, but from just, you know, they were already old when I saw them. You know, like all these movies had been done so long ago, and I just think that they all basically still hold up. You know, they're all still kind of relevant, and so he obviously had a knack for understanding that these were universal themes, and he understood that, you know, that these were basic thematic films, and they stand up today.
Suz, I want to let you know, all the Day of the Dead trolls.
Yeah,
they rejoiced when you said that. Our buddy Jason Green, the biggest Day fan in the world, says Day rocks. I was really hoping he was here to hear you say that.
And here's another thing. I think Survival of the Dead is my second favorite film.
Okay.
I love it. I think it's a fantastic film. And I just don't get why people are like, well, it was terrible. You know, people have they don't like it. And I'm like, are you kidding?
They don't like it now.
It's awesome.
Yeah, it's I'm seeing more and more land coming around and getting some love. Diary's starting to get that. So it's like a lot of George's films, they got to simmer. And then people go back to them. And when some of George's films, if you watch it without all the hype right away of like, you need to see this George movie, and you kind of come upon it yourself and you're watching it without really having talked about it a lot with other fans or whatever, it hits you differently. Right. And I'm seeing that with a lot of, you know, Dark Half, Monkey Shines, Two Evil Eyes, Bruiser, and then the older stuff. it's coming back, and they're and I think people watch movies differently as they age. I'm a big believer in that. Yeah. So I think they might not have liked it then. They still might not like it now, but they're seeing things differently. And then there's a lot of people that are coming back like, I really enjoyed it this time around. I wish I had watched it more in the last 5 years, but sometimes it's a good thing they didn't. But now it's kind of, on a little bit better rotation for them.
I actually think Survival has, other than Night, the ending is, Night of the Living Dead's ending is, stupendous. It's amazing. But Survival's ending also is amazing as well. Mm-hmm. And I just find the cinematography is top drawer, and the acting is terrific. And when we were talking about themes, in this case, it's the McCoys, the Hatfield and the McCoys, or the old Montagues and Capulets from mm-hmm. Romero, Romeo and Juliet. So these are very old themes. Diary, when he's talking about fake news before mm-hmm. we even knew what fucking fake news was. No, but really, you know, it's astonishing. And
as someone that we know that George was not a fan of social media and email and technology, I mean, think about that. I mean, he tackled that subject and came out with a very unique view on that in the early days of social media, MySpace and, pre-Twitter, it was basically MySpace, early Facebook, and kind of YouTube. We didn't have much.
No,
and we're talking about that.
And he could see it.
Well, we're talking about how at the time when Diary came out, it was people were critical about the fact that you're not just going to upload video just like that on the go. And then look at us, right? What are we doing today? We're uploading video on the go through cell signals. So even though it was unrealistic at the time, it's perfect for right now. And actually, I watched Diary recently. It plays so much better now. And I'm discovering all sorts of things in Diary. Every time I see it.
And George and I went to see Land of the Dead because we had seen it early. We were at so we saw it. We read all the the reviews and all that, and we hadn't seen it for 10 years. And then Michael Dougherty invited us to see it at a theater, and George and I watched it. And that movie moves, right? It's
mm-hmm.
it's entertaining. It's fast. It's
it looks like a $200 million movie.
It really does.
It does.
So we watched the movie, and George looked at me, and I looked at him, and he was like, "It's pretty good, right?" I'm like, "It's pretty good."
No, yeah.
When you're the artist and you don't see it for a while, like it had been 10 years since he saw it, and he was like, "Jesus, not so bad, right?" So I was like, "Yeah," because it really moves. It's entertaining. It's not my favorite, but I like it. It's fun, And the actors are, John Leguizamo and Simon Baker. I hear you're doing a show for Land
on the 24th. Yeah.
Yep.
We did a thing with Tina, and we've got Mike Felsher and some others. Some others.
Yep.
Surprise. Okay.
Yep. That was
secrets from me now.
Yep.
Not from you. Not from you.
No. Yeah, Land. Land was the first George movie I saw in the theater. I mean, as a fan, I'd never gotten a chance to see it in the theater, and I think I saw it 8 times in the theater within like a week or two, and I was just I had to go as many times as I could because I'm like, it's George, it's in the theater, it's zombies, it's everything I need in a movie experience. So I'm gonna live it up as much as I can, and it was fun. It was fun when it came out. And then, of course, then you had to wait 6 months for it to come on DVD and everything. But then it was constantly watching it. And, like Eric said, I didn't watch it for a little while, but I went back and I was like, oh, I never noticed that before. Or you just listen to some of the dialogue, or you look in the background. Like there's always a purpose in everything he does in those movies.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And I think Land is a prime example of that.
Yeah.
And
There's
just-
nothing haphazard about any of it. It's all been very carefully, planned.
Yeah.
Plotted out. Yeah.
And it was nice. I mean, I got to see George direct the one day I was on set, and it was just like I got to watch the man make a movie.
Yeah.
And that's Christmas, birthday, everything. If you would have been like, what do you want? I'm like, I want to watch George work, and I got to watch him work. And it's like, you just see that when you watch the movie and you see his passion, and you see all the people that want to be there working for him and how thankful he was for that.
When I was on the set for both Diary and Survival, and I think it was Survival, but it was bloody cold. Like it was ridiculous, and but George was in a tent, with the the camera, he was in a like a nice little cozy bubble, and I'd go out there and I'd be like, oh my God. I'd come back, I go, they're cold, George. Like they're so cold. It's so cold. And he'd go, I know. But so he was protected from sort of the real world out there for the zombies and the all the but everybody wanted to be a zombie.
And we loved it.
Care. And
Nope.
they loved it.
We didn't care how cold it was. We were there for George, and George would have been like, okay, go walk into that creek and stand there. We'd have been like, okay, George. And we would have gone and done it. No complaints. And I would have accepted the frostbite happily. But, that just speaks to him personally. It's his character, his demeanor, his outlook. Yeah. They wanted to do it. So you could have told me, okay, go light yourself on fire for that scene. I'd be like, and I'll go do it. But it was cold, but worth it. Yeah.
And, Michael Felsher and Steve Barton and, Glenna and Robert,
Rob.
They were like, oh my God, even Simon and Edgar. I mean, I speak to them, and they're like, I love that moment.
Yeah.
So
Putting us.
So happy to do it.
Me and Mike and Steve and Rob and Glenna all together in a tent. Good thing George wasn't there. He might have asked us to calm it down a little bit. We were just having fun. We were just so excited to be there. And it's, don't put all of us in the same room because it devolves very quick, but we love it.
I'm actually hoping that I'll see Robert and Glenna. We're still sort of reeling from the pandemic over here in Toronto. So, and they're in Ottawa. So So I'm hoping to see them.
Okay, good. I miss them. I need to see them too.
Yeah.
So no chance of seeing you in Pennsylvania this summer?
I think not this summer. Well, unless the border opens up and it, but I don't think so. Yeah.
Okay.
So I'm thinking September.
All right. Okay.
Yeah, and hoping that we're going to go to the Salem. So we're partners with Kay Lynch at the Salem Film Festival in Salem, Massachusetts, and we've got some exciting events in October. We're hoping to so we're super excited about it. I'm hoping you two guys are going to be there.
Heck yeah.
I'll be wherever I can. You know me. Give me a date. I'll be in the car. I'm already calling off work.
We don't have a date. We're pressuring Kay to give us a date.
Okay.
But as soon as we have one, the reason why I'm pressuring her because I'm looking for housing because there isn't all that much in Salem. So and we've got a whole bunch of people that I'd like them to all be there. So we're it'll be fun. It'll be fun to do a Romero event in Salem, Massachusetts.
Yeah. Marry Romero and Salem, put them together, and let's see what happens.
Let's see what happens. Boom.
All right, Suz, I want to thank you for coming on, and we're super excited. Everybody, again, check out the free trial of Shudder if you're not a subscriber already, and take it in and weigh in. Let us know your thoughts. We want to hear from you.
Yeah, that's great. And I hear you're going to wrap with people who've seen it as well, right?
Absolutely, yes.
Yep.
Trusted Romero associates.
Right? Good.
Yeah.
Well, have fun, guys, and hi everybody, and I can't wait to go back to the Berg.
No, we can't wait to see you again.
Yeah. Ditto.
All right.
All right, Suz. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Suz.
Night,
All right.
night.
Night.
Bye. All right.
All right.
Yep, we've got a couple of our aforementioned Romero associates waiting in the green room. Let's go ahead and bring them on. First up, we've got Mr. Jace Witman. How you doing, sir?
Pretty good. How are you doing? It's good to see you guys.
Good, bud. Thanks for coming on.
Thanks for having me.
Oh, of course.
And we also have Mr. Richard Hartle, or Samael Newmanine. How you doing, sir?
Thanks for having me.
Hey, bud. How are you?
Doing well. How you guys doing?
Great.
Can't complain, man.
Let me get this banner off so we're not covering your faces here. All right.
You can cover my face. It's okay.
And actually, we before we get into it a little bit, you guys have some side projects. We want to give you a chance to promote. Jace, talk a little bit real quick about your YouTube program.
My YouTube channel is called Music and Monsters, and one of my recurring weekly segments is Dawn of the Dead Thursday, which I've been doing I'm almost at episode 100 now. That kind of tells you. I had a break for a while due to health issues, but it's still going and it's changing. And so anyone that is interested in Dawn of the Dead the way I am, just look up Music and Monsters on YouTube. And there's playlists. It starts from episode 1, where episode 1 is basically just where I started off filming all my VHS. And then it just kept going, and then it turned into kind of an unboxing show. And now I'm like, I can't keep buying all this stuff. Well, I think part of the problem is I'm running out of stuff to buy.
Uh-huh.
I mean, I've got a good collection, and
There's always more.
I'm still looking. It's like if I can find something. And so that's the funny thing is that my recent episodes have been called Dead Formats, where I'm going into talking about my favorite VHS releases, my favorite Laserdisc releases, which are the Japanese releases. And then the side effect episode, which is coming up, is when I went through and looked at all my VHS, I was like, wait a minute, there's an Anchor Bay one that I'm missing. Like the crappiest Anchor Bay one I'm missing, and I don't know what happened to it. So I went out and bought that again, and I got another Blu-ray from Argentina. I'm still buying, and so I'm like, oh yeah, there's still stuff that I need. Mm-hmm. So that's pretty much it. It's my obsession.
If I need stuff, you still need stuff.
Yeah, that's true.
There's always more stuff to have.
I don't think it's ever going to end.
No.
Just when you think you came up dry, you're like, oh, but wait, there's this.
There's a new format.
Well, and there's still reel 3 of the German digest that I'm looking for, of Super 8 digest. Just did an episode about that too.
'Tis a quest.
Yeah.
Yep.
And I found I'm not the only one. There's another collector that's looking for reel 3. It's like, okay, good luck to you, and good luck to me.
Yeah.
May the best man win.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And Rich, you also do a movie-related podcast. Tell us about that and where we can find it.
Oh yeah, we're at the Devil's Ball. You can find us at anchor.fm/Devil's Ball, or on Twitter at devils_at. My friend and I, Nathaniel Johnson, and I do a podcast on horror and horror-related films. We try to keep a positive and constructive look at them, even if it's something we maybe don't like so much. We try to. We didn't want to be one of those people who just scream at movies all day, So our motto is keep it positive, keep it constructive, and if we can't hit positive, we're gonna try to hit constructive.
Yeah.
No, I love that approach. I'm not one that really gets angry at movies. I try to find enjoyment in some, even some of the stuff that we were watching on Joe Bob last week with the VHS stuff. I was like, this is bad.
Right. Yeah,
but I see what they wanted to do, and I didn't get
respect them for trying.
Hey, they made a movie and put it out, which is more than I've done in terms of film. So you know what? And you got it on Joe Bob for whatever reason. and it's on Shudder or whatever, you know what? More power to you. Congratulations.
Exactly.
You know, being an artist, you know, even doing this show or, you know, your guys' shows, we're putting ourselves out there, and it's not going to be for everyone all the time, but you know what? It's glad to support anyone making content, especially content that resonates with me. You know, I just love seeing people do stuff that they're passionate about, and it's not always going to be, you know, sunshine and lollipops, but you know, I think putting a positive or constructive spin on it, or the excitement of, you know, going and reviewing a dead format or an unboxing, you know what? That's passion. That's awesome. You know, there needs to be more recognition of that. More people, you know, not coming down like, oh, that was such a shitty release. I can't believe you spent money on that. You know what? Who cares? I love it. It's mine.
Yeah, I want it. I got it. You know?
Yeah. It means something to me for my own reasons, and I'm happy. And
it's, you know, it's important to be inclusive, and you know, there's so many like gatekeepers out there in fandoms that, you know, it's just like, you like horror movies, awesome, let's talk to you. You know, it's and we try to keep our podcast kind of, you know, we do some research, we do some, you know, talk about themes in the film and stuff like that, but we all want it to be like a conversation, you know. We're lucky enough to have Eric come out a couple days ago for Summer Camp Nightmare, and I think we had a blast with it. Yeah.
And how you guys are pretty much like once a week, right? Or is that the pace you're keeping? Yeah,
we're trying once a week. We're coming up on a year in August, so there's a lot more episodes than I thought there was already. You know.
Yeah, you guys are killing it.
Thank you.
At the Devil's Ball. So, we've gathered here tonight just because we've finally, you know, we've had a chance. It's a new George Romero project that's been unleashed upon the world, and Matt and I were lucky enough to get a chance to look at it last summer, but we just, you know, we haven't had a chance to talk to anybody about it or hear other people's thoughts on it. So
how was it having to sit on that the whole time? I mean, that had to have been just rough.
Well, I mean, because it always seemed like it was on the cusp as well. You know what I mean? That was the frustrating.
Yeah.
If we knew it was going to come out next June, we would have been fine probably. But it always seemed like it was about to happen. You know?
Yeah, it was like, hey, take a look at this. Where, you know, there was always moving parts, and there was always there's always a moving target with this stuff. And it was like the target kept moving further back, and we wouldn't hear about it for a while, but we knew it was coming, and that was kind of like the ease of it was like, no, there's something happening. We just have to this step, then step 1A, 1B, 1C, and you went through the whole alphabet to get to step 2. And that's what it felt like, you know. And of course it's excruciating when you watch it and you're like, what's going to happen? We're like, we're hoping this year, we're hoping next year. But we knew there was an end game, there was a destination, and we were just excited that I think people are going to dig this. I think people are going to, it's new George. It's unseen George.
For sure.
And that was the thing that kind of kept me going with it. It was like, I really want everyone to see this. And I think it's going to hit people in different ways. And I don't think that, you know, there was just part of me that was like, it's never going to happen. And I think Shudder announced it in like February, and it seemed like June was so far off.
Yeah.
And we were like, oh my God, it's finally here. Oh my God, we got to wait 4 more months. Like, let's go. And
but at least then you knew when Christmas was. Like before then,
right.
They kept moving Christmas to different dates.
Yeah.
Now at least you knew when it was again.
Yeah.
And we hadn't seen it pieced together. It had like breaks between the reels for like 90 seconds. So it wasn't all, you know, squeezed together.
Yeah.
Nice looking like it is now. So, but yeah, I mean, Jace, what you took it in recently, right?
I hated it. I'm just kidding. I loved it. It's everything I wanted and then more. It's I've seen people talking about it that are online, of course, you know, people being negative about saying it's not a horror movie. It's like, it's scary. It's like, I don't know. I don't know the person's that was commenting saying it's not a horror movie. It's like, there's no gore, but like the first thing that struck me was it's totally different than the other movies that George has done, but it's very much a Romero movie. All the other movies, he had his subtext kind of buried in the story. This one, the entire story is the social commentary. And, you know, I went through my grandma going through dementia, my mom going through assisted living and all that stuff. And so it hit home a lot for me watching all that stuff. And it's one of the things you guys had said earlier about it being taught in school. I fully, and in fact, while I was watching it the first time, I watched it a couple times. First thing I thought was, I wish I would have seen this like 20 years ago, to kind of prepare me for the stuff that I was going to go through with my family. But seeing George in his cameo was like, oh, this really is a George Romero. And then hearing, what is it, Ragtime Razzmatazz from Dawn of the Dead. I was like, I know what that is. And then I had to go look it up. It's like, yep, that's what it is. And it's weird because the biker scene that shows up in there, it's like, wow, this is like a prototype for where he's going for his next big projects in a way. I thought that Lincoln Mazel was great. Incredible performance. Like his performance ran the gamut of emotions, especially the part that struck me was when he's reading the book to the little girl and the mom is dragging her away and he just breaks down crying. It's like, oh man, you could really feel the pain he was going through. And incredible performances. And it's funny because you could see George's editing style at work, all the quick edits and everything in there, and all the library score stuff that pops up in there. It's like, wow, yeah, it's definitely a George movie. Mm-hmm. But so of course now I've already been on the search. Well, even before the movie came out, I was searching for foreign posters, and I think Norman England had said that they're involved with the Japanese release, and that they're going to put some stuff together for the Japanese release. I don't know what that's going to be. I assume a cool Japanese poster, which I definitely will buy. Hopefully some other stuff too. But yeah, I loved it.
Yeah, we need some amusement park swag for sure.
Yes.
The GARF should get into that. Put out some shirts, posters. I don't know.
Yeah, I'd buy a shirt. I'd definitely buy a shirt.
I would too.
I'm into it.
Okay. We'll put that in the monthly suggestion box and
put it in the hopper.
Yeah.
Cool.
I mean, it's one of those things like, why not?
Yeah.
They've got it. They own it. And
well, there's a market.
Yeah. I mean, it might be a smaller market, but there's still a market. I mean, like you said, I'd wear an amusement park t-shirt. People are like, there's a George Romero movie called The Amusement Park.
Right.
I'm like, hey, why don't you go to Shudder?
Right.
Type it up and give it a watch. It's something completely different. And like you said, it's early George, and when he did that run, Season of the Witch, There's Always Vanilla, The Crazies, and all that. Jace, you mentioned it, I love the editing in this. There's something about it that, of all of those early works, I'm not the biggest fan of George's editing, but I mean, I saw what he was doing, and I have no problem with it. But there was something with the amusement park, just the way he edited it, that I think that might be, my favorite part of the film from a technical aspect is just that editing. It just flows. It's a 52-minute film. It doesn't feel like it.
Right.
It goes by quick, but you're like, I want more. Like, show me more of this. And it's just one of those just examples of how George saw film and just how he could make his vision through an edit. And a quote that I was told by another film producer, he goes, the movie is found in the edit. Mm-hmm. And I think when George sat down to cut this, he found something and he kept going with it. And I think it just works.
Well, especially a movie like this, where it's, there's minimal dialogue. There's only really one, quote unquote actor in the film. Everybody else just about is, people he knew or, people who volunteered. And so like a film like this, if you didn't have the editing that it had, it would die on the vine, I think. Because this is mostly told visually and through sound and the edits, the quick cuts. And it doesn't let up because of that frenetic editing. You're in the amusement park with him. You're not watching him. I mean, you're part of the experience.
And that's funny because you mentioning that, Rich, was like every conversation that's happening in that movie that's not direct with Lincoln Mazel, you're kind of hearing it how he's hearing it.
Right, as you're like walking by.
You're a bystander. Like you said, you're there with him. So you're not really getting it from anyone else's perspective except his. And that's to me, an effective part of storytelling, because you're not getting the whole story. You're only seeing someone's perspective, and you're seeing it from an older person's perspective. If the amusement park, there was an edit where he did it from a young person's perspective, it would be a completely different film. Yeah. And almost like that would be a great double feature. Is like, this is, and Lincoln Mazzell keeps popping up in all these scenes, and maybe like the Mike Gornick couple, they're going through the amusement park and they keep seeing these old people from their perspective. That would just be a nice kind of duality of just seeing the whole picture. But I'm just a fan.
And this is just where I think, like you mentioned, the middle films, the kind of, lost siblings of like There's Always Vanilla, Season of the Witch, The Crazies, and now this. You really get to see like how much he learned from cutting commercials and cutting like industrial films, because you only have so much time to get in and get out. I mean, and he shows all that craft on display here, and I think it's just it elevates it to something just up there with anything else he's done, in my opinion.
Well, that's why I said earlier I think he used every tool in the bag, because like most or all of his other works have included much heavier narrative elements. It has, like, we've seen him do this. Like, really, it reminds me most out of anything that he's done. The opening sequence to Season of the Witch, where the husband's leading his wife down the trails. You even have some of the same sound effects that's used in this movie, but you have different lenses, you have close-ups, you have all sorts of bizarre things going on to complete the picture, of this, dreamlike, bizarre nightmare scenario. But in the amusement park, he employs those tactics for the entire running time outside of the opening and closing narration by Lincoln Mazzell. Which, imagine this movie if that wasn't present, you'd just be like, what the fuck did I just see? You would have thought it was made by Frank Zappa or something. But that's what's so intriguing about this, is that he really, he dug into that particular thing that he was doing there at the beginning of Season of the Witch, but just for the entire time.
Or even the beginning of There's Always Vanilla, where they're like, everybody's looking at the sculpture and giving their ideas of what it is, like
the whirly gig.
What does it do? The whirly gig, yeah. And you could see like how he quick cuts and edits and goes from different perspectives of that, and I think that's almost like the twin sister of this movie in a lot of ways. Yeah.
I see some of that, like there's that rape sequence in the Crazies also, where he's kind of doing the weird thing with the cutting back and forth with the pogo ball and the mirror bowl. I mean, it's just really, nobody really talks about it, but it's what it is. It's really like psychedelic cinema stuff that you saw in Roger Corman films and stuff.
And it's not done. It's not done just to do it. That's one thing. Even when Romero goes, kind of experiment. Would you call this kind of experimental? Maybe. There's a purpose to it. It's not just to do it. It's not just to be flashy. Like even like the quick cuts and the weird jarring sequences in this serve the story at the end of the day.
Absolutely.
Yeah, one thing the amusement park did for me this week is, and Rich, again, you kind of touched on it. It makes me want to go back and watch that little trio of films, Crazies, Vanilla, and Witch, and I think it's gonna make me watch them a little differently.
Yep.
There was something about the amusement park that just hit me, where it's almost like it's opening my eyes to something different. And I mean, how many times have we watched George's films just to watch them and see what we could see differently? And he's still kind of taking us to school. He's still teaching us and showing us what he did. And like you said, it was an experimental film, quote unquote, kind of maybe on the edge of experimental. Right. But like you said, he wasn't throwing everything against the wall and seeing what works so that he can move on to another project and say, okay, well, this didn't work, but this did. And, taking pieces of what he did in the amusement park and applying it. It was just like he always kind of had that vision with him. Now he had the opportunity to make a film this way. And then he goes and makes Crazies. He makes it this way. And he just slightly tweaks what he's doing. And he's, he had a run, from 68 to 78, 10 years. He made 5 films? How many directors in their early works made that many films before making it? I don't want to say making it big, but I mean, Don Martin really shot him off, right? But he had a lot of practice. He had a lot of.
I think Suz mentioned it in like the thing after on the Shudder thing. Like it's not like he wasn't making films, he wasn't doing anything. He was still out there working.
Right.
Yeah, the sports docs he was doing, which I mean, I was going to mention, like, me and you, Rich, we date back to the collecting the sports docs back in the day. I mean, that would have, and I would, I mean, if anybody can, a couple of them are on YouTube.
Mm-hmm.
Those are very similar to the amusement park and
you get to
style.
see, like, the other, Romero and Co. people, the Image 10 people, the Laurel people, taking the reins in there. So we need to get a box set of those. I hope that's
Hell
a
yeah.
secret project.
Mm-hmm.
No comment.
Yeah.
No comment with a down arrow.
Yeah. But I mean, when you look back, Night is on its own. It's 68. It kind of doesn't cross this bubble, but when you look at Amusement Park and Season and Vanilla, they're very 70s. Even Martin is a 70s film. Like when you watch other 70s films, like it's really a product of its era. Dawn moves out of that. And I don't know if that was a subconscious or a conscious choice by George, but Dawn is the first film of his that I don't see as being dated. Yeah, I mean the style and some of the tech.
You know what it is?
You can't get around that. Yeah.
I think it's just 35 millimeter color.
Yep.
That's all it is.
That could be.
Because
this is him making a blockbuster.
And the big set.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Or the location.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. But he didn't try to make it 70s. If that makes sense. That's just kind of how I see it. He didn't really need to bring the outside world in. Obviously, the set self-contained in a mall, there wasn't much of that 70s niche influence on that film, like the other ones. But there's nothing wrong with that. I just see that as that little time frame work of like, this is George being as 70s as he could, because he probably loved the 70s. He worked a lot. He was probably living it up, and and that was probably the style.
Well, I also laugh during his cameo. He reminded me of Alan Alda. If you look at what he looked like.
He did.
And his acting in that scene was pretty good.
Yeah.
He's a good actor. Yeah. He's I mean, he's not like Tarantino where you're like, oh boy. No, he's
fast forward.
Yeah. All of his cameos were blink and you miss them. And you're right. He didn't call attention to the fact that he was in his own films.
Right.
And it's very subdued. It's very you just don't know it's George.
He's definitely not M. Night Shyamalan. Right. Where like the look at me.
I mean, as a person who's been an independent, basically an independent filmmaker up until that point, and beyond, like you can't be involved in that many aspects of production and not pick up some acting skills.
Right.
I mean, he was part of the casting, production at every part of a movie you can think of. He's done. I mean, at one point or another, and surrounding himself with great actors like in Night of the Living Dead and There's Always Vanilla. Like you're going to learn some acting tips. And since he goes in knowing exactly what he wants beforehand, with all his quick edits and stuff, you have to have a mental picture of what you're doing. I don't think it's hard for him to give it a good performance in this. But I'm glad he did. I mean, obviously, but I think he knows how to act, even just by osmosis.
I mean, look at his performance in Martin.
Yeah,
he's playing a priest, but he's almost
good
not playing a priest. He's more like a regular guy who happens to be a priest, and he's having this conversation. I think all of George's cameos, I think that's heads and tails his best.
Yes.
Just because he had some acting chops.
What part did Bill Hinsman play? Was he the ticket taker?
Yeah.
Okay.
He had the little dealer cap on.
I couldn't recognize him. I was like,
$5.
Yeah, exactly.
$5.
Yeah.
I'll give you $1. Oh, you can't do that to me. That was a good role.
Yeah.
Yeah, Bill looked completely different from Night and everything else he did. There was just he was a blink and you miss him, and it took me years to find him in Night Riders.
Oh, yeah. I didn't know he's in Night Riders.
Yeah, he shoots the bow and arrow
out of the tree. And it was interesting, that component is still going on today, and they addressed it more so later on in the amusement park. But basically, it's a situation where these people are forced to give up their every asset that they own, their home and everything, in exchange for residing in one of these long-term care facilities, which are of varying degrees of quality. So yeah, it's not much has changed.
And even from the start, you see, he's coming into the amusement park. Everybody in front of him is selling things because they don't have. I'm guessing Lincoln Mazel is probably like an upper middle class character. Maybe he had a successful business, whatever. People in front of him in line are selling, heirlooms for $5, and he's got a stack of money, and gives. Okay, I could take this many tickets, but I'm saving some for an emergency. But by the end, I mean, he's just in the same pot as everybody else.
Yeah.
And he still comes away with nothing.
Yeah, and it keeps chipping away. And that's why after they... was it after the fortune teller where he goes and there's people like selling new roofs for houses?
Right.
Mm-hmm.
There's people selling like, hey, trade us your house and get a spot at this retirement home. And that's showing how the system, like, even if you come in with money, we're still going to get it all one way or another. If you don't go to the guy selling, second mortgages or the guy selling, a retirement home,
reverse mortgage.
There's the guy on the bench who's going to talk to you and pick your pocket. I mean, it's unavoidable.
Mm-hmm.
That's the thing that tripped me out is a lot of George's movies are way ahead of its time, and the amusement park is definitely ahead of its time. I mean, it's eerie how much he predicted. I mean, I'm sure that all that was happening then. It's just that I experienced it, last 10 years with my mom, my grandma. It's like, wow. It's like, is it really that rough? It is.
Yeah.
And that's the part that's the most depressing to me about it is that it's
also the
changed.
thing that Lincoln says at the end, he's like, we're all going to get old. We're all going to be there.
Yeah.
It's like, I'm 50 now. And so I'm close. And that was the other thing that got me, like when they did the scene when he was in like the rehab facility with the elderly people doing all their exercises. Like I went through something similar to that a couple of years ago in my recovery. And it's like, I still walk with a cane. It's like, so, I'm almost one of them now.
Yeah.
And really the sad picture is that you by just being lucky enough to die at home randomly, that's your only escape out of all of this. Otherwise, you have to take the ride in the amusement park,
Well, that's like what I would say to my mom. She would just be always complaining about, sorry, this is Alexa talking.
Alexa, shut the hell up.
Yeah, exactly. Stop talking. So my mom would complain about getting older. She's like, it's no picnic. And I was like, consider the alternative. Right. It's like, you're dead. And, unfortunately that happened, but that's life.
Yeah. I know that's what we're really, I don't know. It's like we're walking around in a dream where we're all just kind of ignoring our fate or just not considering it strongly enough because we're all going to end up there. The amusement park should touch everyone, even if you haven't had a close personal experience with it. It should wake something up within you and realize, and it's a struggle. We've all been young, when you're young, it's you can't see it, but I
indestructible.
think we've crossed that border now. I think all four of us. But so it's I mean,
but
he
they even put that part in there because they had the young couple and they were kind of like the brash youngsters who were like, we're never going to see.
I want to see the future.
And what was his first reaction to getting confronted with the knowledge? No, it's going to happen to you too. Is he goes outside and attacks the first old person he sees for no damn reason because he can't deal with it.
Which is a little bit like what you see in the news lately, where older Asian people were being attacked on the street.
Yeah.
It's just crazy because like all the violence towards the elderly is happening right now still, like through the pandemic, through the reaction to the pandemic, people blaming Asian community. It's crazy.
Yeah. I mean, on kind of a note, I turned 40 this year and when that kind of comes up and I'm talking to someone that's older, they're like, oh, you're still so young. And I was like, is 40 really that young anymore?
Doesn't feel like it.
It does
differently.
Yeah. It's interesting because it's like I laugh and I'm like, I turned 40 and I'm still being basically called a kid. And it's by folks that are 75, 80 years old that are still, their quality of life since the 70s, I think has improved, especially for older folks, because we are living a little bit longer. for the most part. But it is interesting. I've noticed that a lot. Is they're like 40, you haven't done anything yet, and I was like. Like, oh my God, like I'm 40, I'm like halfway to your age. And it's like, you know, it's just weird how people view aging and everything, because, you know, folks are living longer. I think, you know, some folks are granted the luck of having a better quality of life in their old age with newer types of communities and stuff, but it's still skewed towards a younger demographic. And
it's still, you know, once you retire, you're no longer, you know, an asset to society. You're a burden. And, you know, as sad as it is, like, you know, what small safety nets are shown in the film are the only ones we still have. There's still no, like, you know, universal health insurance. There's just Medicaid. There's, you know, Social Security insurance, which I think Medicaid started like 5 years before this movie came out. So it's still relatively new. Yeah. But even with that, it's like, you know, it's tough. We're not set up for society, you know, to care for people long term after they've retired, because we still think like, you know, people die at 65.
You know, that's somewhere of the amusement park. I don't know if they explored it. Maybe I missed it, but what happens to the people that don't have anything to barter, that don't have money? Do you know what I mean? Like, was there like a fire pit that they walk into? Or
well, I think everybody was allowed in without tickets, but it was one of those amusement parks where you needed tickets to do anything. So I think that was represented in the scene where he's at the restaurant, and he's, you know, and all the people on the benches come over.
Yeah,
all the
I was
people
going to
that
ask about
come
that.
over to that. And then, you know, he realizes that, you know, they're all starving, and, you know, I'm not sure where you exactly went with that scene, because they seem kind of
me either.
That was a very zombie jamboree scene right there.
I was going to bring that up and just see what everybody else's take. So I'm glad you led into that, because I understand he wanted to understand, you know, the human nature, lend a helping hand. He was, you know, trying to. It was
the haves, the have-nots, and the have-nothings in that scene. But
and it was almost like he was kind of taken advantage of, because they came in and swarmed him and took you know, it was like almost like, okay, thanks for giving us everything, instead of said, okay, thanks for letting me have some. Like, they just, even within that older community, they were still scrambling for anything that they could get so that they could survive, and they didn't care if they were stepping on another older person.
It was basically clearance has been granted. Fuck off.
Yeah.
Right. Or because they were so starving, you know, that they didn't think, you know, that, oh, we need to all share this together. It's like, okay, I'm starving, I need food right now.
Well, and then the shots of them reaching in, like grabbing the food with their hands, reminded me of all the zombie eating.
Dawn of the Dead.
Or Night.
For
sure.
I was definitely thinking of like when they were ripping Tasso open.
No, I thought of that too. That was on my mind.
Except it was bean and bread sandwich.
Pork and beans untoasted bread
and just white bread,
just full handfuls, scooping it up.
Meanwhile, the guy with the comically large cigar is just trying to move to a position where he doesn't have to look at them even.
Right. They had to pick him up and move him to face him. It was hilarious.
And that was interesting.
Comedy. Even in that, there's some comedy in there.
Interesting directorial choice there to kind of remove the dialogue and just have it music, you know, almost like a musical kind of a,
Well, it's like
it's almost like a silent film. It was like a callback to the it was a callback to the silent era, and it was you understood. You know, you understood what was happening in that scene, and it didn't need dialogue. And I think if it had dialogue, it wouldn't have been as effective.
It wouldn't have played the same.
Yeah.
No.
It would have been too obtuse, because they would have, the people, they're like, oh, we're coming to get this food because we're angry at you because of this. You know, it would have been,
And the comedy helps to get you off your game. So when the swarm happens, it's more jarring.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and it's like absurd, and then it gets more absurd, and then more, and then it gets weird. Yeah. Which I liked.
Yeah,
and that's one of the things I really liked is I feel if another filmmaker had done this, they would have really gone out of their way to really hammer home the message through dialogue or through some sort of exposition. And George knew he didn't need that, and the visuals that we got, I think, are more impactful than someone having a conversation over here talking about what is happening in front of them.
Right. Would you rather have, somebody come out and explain to you that, nobody notices the elderly and they'll just walk away from him? Or would you rather see Lincoln like have a meltdown because the last person he talked to is getting taken away and he says nobody?
Yeah.
Which is going to affect you more? I can tell you which one affected me more.
Yeah.
I was like, need to take a cry break. Gotta go to the parking lot, cry.
Yeah.
And during that scene with the little girl, I mean, I've seen it a couple times now, so now I'm just kind of looking for, the little Easter eggs and such. Right. But if you watch while the mom is packing up and making final preparations, the little girl sitting there, she actually crosses her eyes a couple of times. I don't know if it was, I don't know if it was in the script or she was just super bored or something, just over it. But yeah, she just, like literally crosses her eyes a couple of times. It's crazy. But yeah, no, that scene is just, he's he put every ounce that he had into that scene.
Mm-hmm.
And if it wasn't, I mean, on the page, it might have just read, old man was upset, but but
Yeah.
Hey, he still got that piece of chicken though. So I mean, he came out ahead of that situation.
Well, and then it ended up being in the shot too, as he's walking in the background.
Right.
Like, okay, now I want some chicken.
I
he wipes his brow, and I'm like, "Don't wipe your brow with the chicken."
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's a shame he wasted that piece of chicken as he walked away.
Yeah.
But just coming from the commercial industry, he had that perfect glamour shot of the chicken leg.
Right. I'm surprised at how well they kept his costume clean and tracking throughout the film.
Yeah, the continuity.
Exactly. Yeah, man.
Because I mean, I wore white pants for 3 seconds. I only got 16 stains on them.
Yeah.
Good on them. I don't know how they managed to do that. Do you know if they shot an order or?
I would assume they had to.
It was 3 days, so
it was 3 days. So who knows?
Yeah. And I'm, it made me, I was thinking about that when they were talking about, the filming schedule was 3 days. I was thinking, maybe Lincoln was there a day and a half because there was a lot of stuff that didn't involve him. So I'm assuming they might have done that afterwards or whatnot because he might not have been there, or he might have been. But yeah, I thought about that too. I was like, this has to be shot in order because they wouldn't have had that many white suits to put on Lincoln. So definitely feel that.
Or did Lincoln just have a closet full of white suits?
Could be.
Maybe.
That's a good point because I did compare it to the Martin suit, and it's pretty much identical except for the lapel or the fold. There was an extra stitching. It was a thicker outer stitching.
That's
on
a fairly
the,
common summer suit back in the day, I think. Too.
I could see the man having 7 or 8 in his closet.
He seems like he was always a well-dressed man, no matter what Lincoln did. He went to the supermarket in a suit, and he probably looked dapper. He was a GQ kind of guy. Yeah. And I just like that opening. That opening of him basically laying the groundwork.
Right.
And it's almost like he's in character and he's out of character because he's talking to you as Lincoln Mazel as a 73-year-old man. 72-year-old man, whatever he is, basically saying like, this is what I'm going to go through. And I need you to understand what this means for us and how this is going to affect me and how it's going to affect you. He basically wants you to be affected by the movie. He tells you that.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that kind of opening adds to it, where I think in some films, those, pre-credit scenes or, intros, they're not as effective. This one just it sets the stage and you're off to the races.
Well, that and this being a film that was made for a purpose. I think if they just opened with the amusement park, we would have caught on eventually. But having it being for Lutheran charities for elder care, I mean, you kind of need to open with that so they know from the jump what they're there for.
Yeah,
I mentioned to you, Eric, that they could have charged $20 to get out of this film once they started showing it. It's a little rough for the average Lutheran, I feel like.
Yeah. I'd love to have seen what the actual reaction was when they screened it.
To the financial backers. Hell yeah. That'd have been a quiet room for a minute after that.
And then George is like,
this is not what
I'm already paid.
Yeah.
It's done.
They
He's
turn
like, joke's on you, suckers, and
they,
runs.
they turn around to look at George and he's gone.
Right.
Well, I got a thing. One thing I wanted to mention, just because again, this is like my third and fourth times watching it, and it's just I'm noticing some of the minutia, but this is some of the every single shot, every single frame is busy. It's busy. There's things going back and forth, or there's action, there's dialogue, there's something happening.
All those signs.
Yeah.
Yes, but even when you're just zooming in on a sign, you see asses.
Oh,
with,
yeah, there's
with
people back and
different
forth, yeah.
corduroy prints going
Mhm.
back and forth,
Yeah.
and in a couple of scenes just following the bike attack, if you watch, you can see like the same person.
Oh, it's the same
walk
dude
by.
with the mustache. walk
Yeah,
by.
right.
Well, there's a woman with like a green kind of crop top thing. It's like 4 times. You see her in front and the back. It's hilarious. I mean, you don't notice this until the 4th time.
Yeah.
It's great. I mean, it's deliberate. It's just super busy. But that does something to the psyche as you watch it. You know, it keeps you
It's
mentally on
disorienting.
edge. Yeah, keeps you on edge, uncomfortable.
And
Yeah.
it just shows you what George was always able to do with a budget.
Yeah.
You know, how he could think, how can I stretch this dollar into $2 worth of material? And like you said, Jace, like all the signs, all the people that he had to direct, and probably had, you know, he didn't have much of a crew. I'm sure, you know, there was some people there, but to get everyone doing what he did, and, you know, in 3 days, he doesn't have a lot of room for takes.
No.
So I would love to have known what he did for pre-production. You know, did he storyboard? Did he go to the park and say, okay, well, this scene, okay, this is going to take place here, and then we're going to move here. You know, I think the setting in the amusement park was great just because we got to see it full. It didn't seem like it was sparse. It seemed like a normal day, and he just happened to be there filming. It didn't seem like a movie
natural.
set. Yeah.
Which even that I think is, you know, is just shows that, you know, he plans it out ahead in his head. Because, you know, yeah, it just looks like it's the normal day at the park, but you know that it's, you know, extras being told to walk this way. You know, Matt, you got to actually experience firsthand him controlling extras in large quantities. Even when it gets chaotic in the scene with, you know, so many people and so many things going on, it's not chaotic in a manner that seems unplanned. It doesn't confuse you. It doesn't make you lose your thread of the movie.
Yeah.
So
And even going back to his editing, I mean, all the quick cuts, it seems like there's one take, and it felt like he had multiple cameras covering so much, and I'm sure he only had one camera.
Yeah,
but you know,
so much film. I mean, he's got a very low budget. You know, how much film could you afford with that?
Yeah.
I don't even know what it was. I don't know if they said what the budget was, but it's not shooting digital, guys. It's it's film cans.
Yeah. I can't imagine this budget was over a 5-figure budget.
Right.
You know, it could not have been. Excuse me, especially for like a PSA type film. So George knew he had to get in and get out in 3 days, and he didn't need people to act.
No.
Right.
You know, he needed older people to act like themselves, confused. You know, maybe he didn't give them as much direction. And he's like, okay, I'm going to bump into you.
Right.
React to what I'm saying. Yeah, talk about your insurance or whatnot. I'm sure they had some lines of dialogue, but it just felt just react and go with it. And that's how I took how a lot of those extras were probably directed, kind of like how he directs zombies. Okay, you're a zombie. You're going to walk there and, you know, bang on that wall. Okay.
Yeah.
You know, he doesn't, you know, because if you do, you know, everyone will be doing the same thing if George tells you how to do it. And you lose that individuality, which, you know, a lot of his zombies and every one of his films have personality, because whoever's portraying it puts a little bit of themselves in it. Trust me, I know. And you kind of want to add that flair to it. But I mean, as you know, those older people just seem real.
Yeah.
You know,
That brings a question. You know, I mean, I'm surprised he's not more fond of this project. It seems like he was just able to tee off and be a complete auteur on this. You know, I mean, look, especially after we've seen it, it's like, what's not to like, especially coming from Romero?
I think because it wasn't his.
Yeah.
You know, it wasn't he didn't start it from start to finish
Ground
and
up.
have, I think it
and
was.
Then it was rejected too, so that probably hurt his feelings.
Yeah,
But I'm not sure if that's that was my initial understanding too. But the more I hear about it, the more it sounds like they actually screened this thing and used it as originally planned. We'll dig deeper and get the scoop on that. But yeah, that's what I've been hearing as of late, is they actually screened it a lot. They
that's
used
good.
it. So
And maybe he didn't hear anything from the folks afterwards, and that could be why. Is like, yeah, we used it. Thanks. It's.
and then it was lost, pretty much lost anyways.
It served its purpose. It probably had
the guy who goes back and watches his stuff, over and over again. I mean,
yeah. I mean, he was paid for it, and he probably wanted, how was it received? And it was like, yep, it was good. It probably didn't have long legs for the purpose that the Lutherans were looking for. They needed to get this film to do what they needed to do, and it served its purpose, and they maybe moved on to something else. And George was like, okay.
Yeah.
And Victoria was mentioning it was we know it was a contracted gig, but it wasn't like a contracted gig. I mean, he's used to contracted gigs. He'd done Calgon advertisements.
It wasn't the Calgon story. It was actually.
So this actually was this wasn't a commercial. This was something with some merit. It had a purpose, So I'm surprised he's, just not.
And the
at least a little.
he comes back to again and again. It's a lot of the same messaging as his later films have. The zombie films. I mean, it's just
Land of the Dead. The kind of ignoring the zombie problem is kind of like the amusement park.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
That's basically, I think, what it boils down to, is that our culture, U.S. culture in particular, is ignoring the problems with the elderly.
Right.
And we've been ignoring it for decades, or more than that, obviously.
Or even just, people with, on top of the elderly, it's, disabled people who, have autism, people, because I think part of, just as shitty as it sounds, part of human nature is empathy also has an aspect of patience in it, and caring for the elderly, or caring for, somebody who's severely disabled, it's a full-time job. It never stops.
Yeah.
It's not, walking down the street and putting $1 in somebody's tin can. It drags on you, it weighs on you, and I don't mean that in a bad way. It's just the way it is. And I think that's why a lot of people don't want to have to think about that kind of thing, or that they get mad and blow up at somebody who's not who can't help having dementia or whatever, and it's just a sad state of affairs for life in general.
Yep.
That's the way.
Ultimately, it's about time. The time. It's also about our time. It's time that we would have to invest of our lifetime to spend on someone else's lifetime. So it's kind of this it's a tough nut to crack, man. I don't have the answer. Obviously, yes, empathy, inclusion, but getting there is why movies like these needed to be made.
That's the awesome thing, that this thing was made in 1973, and we're talking about it right now, trying to figure out what do we do to help the elderly.
Mm-hmm.
That's pretty awesome.
Yeah. And just even from a film perspective, there's not a lot. George didn't have a lot on this film, so it's almost like he inadvertently left it up to us to discover this and talk about it, and it goes to show how deep this film was. And even though George just kind of was like, okay, yeah, I did it. His mind was always thinking, well, there was more to it, but probably no one's ever going to see it, or I don't need to talk about it. And here we are almost 50 years later. I mean, think about that. In 2 years, it'll be 50 years that this came out, and these topics are still relevant. We still have these problems. And
they'll be relevant as long as people grow old and die, and they're neglected.
We're still fighting in the state houses every day to defund, Social Security, defund
for sure
Medicare, Medicaid. It's like, guys, we should be looking in the other direction. We should try to get more help to people, not less. Because it's at the end of the day, it's a societal problem that we as a society need to deal with.
Mhm.
You know, I can't go out there today and take care of, you know, the elderly problem. Neither can all four of us together.
No.
I mean,
Yeah, I mean, and you said it earlier, Rich. I mean, you know, folks after a certain age of retirement, they're not seen as products of society. They're great. Now we got to take care of these people. Like, why is that our problem? Why can't someone else take care of it? Well, there's not someone else to take care of it. And the longer you think of these people in those terms and keep trying to push it onto someone else, okay, you push it to someone else. They still need money and resources, and they're not going to show up out of thin air. You know, we have an obligation to take care of our own because it's our family. You know, most people are like, well, I don't worry about old people. But when they have to take care of their parents or their elderly grandparents, now they need that help. Now they want that help. They're like, why is this so hard? Well, it's because you didn't do anything about it until you absolutely had to. You did no planning 20 years ago for what may come down the pike that you know is coming. You can't stop time.
You have the means to plan for something like that. You know,
and that's true. Not everybody does, but I mean, there's, and again, I'm just speculating, so please don't. There's always certain things I think we can do if you have some means to educate yourself. It doesn't cost anything to get educated and find out what these programs are and picking up the phone or visiting. At least you have an idea of what you may be able to do and not do. At least start to funnel down what your options are before it becomes a problem. At least you can kind of nudge your way towards, okay, this is probably the best solution for me. So I should work my way towards that because I know I'm going to be a burden, or I don't want to say in that bad way, but I know I'm going to need help.
Right.
Yeah.
Sorry, apparently my dog has opinions that she gets to share.
Well, all right, guys, we've rounded up to the 8 that we've blown beyond the 8:30 mark, so I don't want to hold you up too much more. But I do want to thank both of you for joining us, and it's been a blast.
Thanks for having us.
Anytime I can help, then let me know.
Yep. No, absolutely love having you guys on and love hearing your guys' thoughts on this. It was fun Tuesday. We were all sitting there. We were all kind of watching George together.
Right.
And it was neat going to social media. And it was like both my timelines, Twitter and Facebook, it was just nothing but Romero. And I was so happy. I was smiling. And, I kind of felt a sense of pride that it was like, people are seeing this. It's George and it's something different. And I love George when he's different.
Like you said, we're all coming together to watch something, new of his, quote unquote.
Yeah.
That, how many times are we going to get that chance? Really.
Yeah.
Right. Well, you'll get one more chance if you heard Suz. She's got something cooking.
I cannot wait to find out what it is.
Yeah. So
it's exciting.
Well, all right, guys. Appreciate you. We're going to go ahead and roll on out from here. We got, we're signing off until the 24th, where we've got a Land of the Dead Sweet 16 party planned. Until then, I'm Eric.
And I'm Matt.
And we'll see you next time on the GARF Network.
See you.